Alright guys, we gotta talk about Ghosts from the Past. This set is pretty neat in my opinion, and has been getting an absolutely wild amount of criticism and blowback from the entire Yu-Gi-Oh community, not just in the US, but everywhere. Content creators are destroying it because it's quote-unquote awful. Consumers, fans are saying, oh, this is not a good set, this is such a letdown. Everyone in between, everyone except vendors who sold this for like $130 a box and made double MSRP, they're happy. They don't care. They got their money already, so they're good. I do not share the sentiment that this set is terrible. Now, is it as good as Dual Overload? No, it's not. And I don't think it was ever going to be. Because while Dual Overload had a lot of solid reprints, it did not have the element of Ghost Rares. If you want to have a conversation about whether or not adding 5 chase cards to a product as a means to sell it is good or bad for the overall health of the game, we can talk about that, because that's a different conversation. But the fact is, we know we're getting 5 Ghost Rares in this set. That being a factor, Konami knows they don't have to load this set up the same way they would Dual Overload, because it's going to sell on the fact that people are going to be cracking these open to get the Ghost Rares. That's just the way it is. We haven't had Ghost Rares in the game since, I don't even remember what the last set was, Dimension of Chaos, I think, back in 2015. And then we got the Winged Dragon of Ra as a Ghost Rare and Legendary Duelists in a completely lackluster set. This set is not that. Okay, so let's get that out of the way first. This set introduces some new archetypes to the game that are kind of cool. It introduces support for existing archetypes that is actually really solid in the case of Dragoonity, which we'll get to. And Laval, which is a huge fan favorite archetype. I've always thought Laval to be super fun. I'm not going to sit here and argue its meta relevance with you, but I will say that the cards Laval gets are really good and may actually be beneficial to people who are interested in playing the deck or want to try those combos out in a totally different metagame. Alright, so just putting it out there, I'm acknowledging it's not as good as Dual Overload. And it's maybe better than Dual Power. I'd have to look at the two sets side by side again and kind of compare them, because people seem to fondly remember Dual Power because it had infinite impermanence and evenly matched, but that set was kind of too, if you really get past the few new cards that people actually cared about, like Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres, which is in this set for the record. So there's a lot of things to kind of break down if you were going to do like a comparison. I just don't understand why everyone hates this set so much, and I am going to try and present to you why I think it's not terrible. Okay? That's what we're here for. So let's settle down. Let's have a conversation. There are 3 types of people who are going to be feeling a certain way about this set. You're going to have your high-end collectors who are going to be mostly disappointed with this because they're really going after Ghost Rares only. There's nothing else in here for them to pick up that's going to be like a necessarily quick turnaround or quick flip, unless you think the Dragoonity stuff is going to make an immediate impact, and maybe you'll see stuff like Remus vault up to the top of the price charts, other than the Ghosts, obviously, once the set comes out. So high-end collectors don't have much of an interest in this outside of the Ghost Rares. And typically, unless they're just throwing money around for fun, they're not going to crack open cases upon cases trying to get this. They're just going to buy the Ghost Rares so they have what they want. So let's acknowledge that it's not necessarily going to be the best set for people that have every card in the game that they could possibly want and just want the Ghost Rares. But you got people that are in the middle that maybe have some stuff and either maybe don't have cards like Emergency Teleport and Orchestrated Return, or maybe they sold them a while back, were hoping they would drop, and now they're getting more accessible copies of them. Maybe they're just budget players who couldn't afford them or for whatever reason didn't have them. Some people play this game and get rid of a deck and they sell it to finance the next deck. Not everybody's necessarily able to hold on to everything forever if you want to change the way you're playing. That's normal. That's just kind of how it goes when you're playing a game like this. Sometimes you have to sell your cards and invest it into a new deck, or, sell certain pieces of things and you want to pick them up later, but then they spike and you don't have the opportunity to do so. So for those people who maybe need Orchestrated Returns, Emergency Teleport, Phantom Knight's Fogblade, this set gives you a decent handful of those solid reprints. Evenly matched as well, which has long since been a necessary reprint. Unfortunately, they did skimp it on the structure deck it was supposed to be in, which I'm not cool with. Definitely not a cool move by Konami, but I'm happy that we're getting it in here at least, because it should make it more accessible. I think it'll settle somewhere around $15, $20 when all is said and done, and just that's a card that everybody should be able to have access to. So we've got at least 5 to 6 really solid reprints that are relevant or could quickly be relevant if needed. And then you've got your second tier of reprints, things like Pudding Cess, the Cosmo cards, Cosmo Dark Lady, CosmoJoe, and Cosmo Tin Can. All 3 of these cards are hard to get, have not been printed in almost 9 years, and were all relatively pricey, between $12 and $15 depending on the card. Understandably, it's not anywhere near as expensive as stuff you might need to play full meta deck nowadays, but that stuff adds up, especially if it's something you just want to put together as sort of like a hobby deck or something to play for fun. You shouldn't have to sink that much money into it, especially when you consider the fact that so much time has passed since we got those cards reprinted. So that middle ground area of people that maybe just want to get some cards and didn't want to spend the money, didn't have the money to spend, operate on a budget when it comes to the game, there's only so much they can put into it, this set is solid, because for $15 you can get one of these, booster packs, although ideally right now the MSRP is $15, but people are selling them a lot higher. Hopefully Konami puts in, a amicable supply out and continues to re-wave these, or maybe does an unlimited run, so that these are more affordable for the casual player. But let's just assume that we're working within a $15 to $30 range to buy one of these. The first argument that comes up, obviously, is that it's very top-heavy. So there's not going to be anything in this set, I don't think, that isn't a Ghost Rare that breaks $30. I would be very surprised. It's not going to be like Dual Overload, where it had Verte Anaconda and even Halki Fibrax, both of which are, $40 now, if not a little bit more. I wasn't expecting that personally, because I think we knew the Ghost Rares were going to be used to sell this set. For Konami to throw a ton of cards in here and overload this set, all they're really doing is hurting their ability to sell future products. They have to sell Battles of Legend. They have to sell King's Court. Now, I don't know if King's Court is just going to sell based on Egyptian gods, and it may not be something that they drop a ton of things into, because Egyptian god support and collector rares will probably be enough to move the needle and get people to buy the product. But we've got a pretty solid amount in here. You can look at some of the other reprints that we're getting, like things like Evil Thorn, things like Medalche Pudding Cess, Raid Raptor Tribute Lanius, Dragon Knight Draco Equus, although I don't think that was very expensive at all, Buster Dragon and Meteor Black Comet Dragon, all cards that were way higher than they should be considering their use, and are welcome reprints. Now, the counter-argument to that, of course, is that there's a lot of reprints in here that are terrible, things like the Salamangrate Falco and Foul, and the Metal Foe stuff, which was already super in Pendulum Evolution and really doesn't need to be foil in here again. There are some bad reprints in this set. There are probably at least 20, 25 reprints in this set that made me go, why in the fuck would you even bother? Resonator Engine, Resonator Call, Xyz Burst. Like, let's not sit here and pretend the set is perfect. But to condemn it like it's an absolute waste of time is just not... You either set unrealistic expectations for yourself that Konami has never met. So while Dual Overload had a lot of solid stuff, it didn't have Ghost Rares. They're offsetting this, and you need to be able to tamper your expectations based on what they're actually putting into the market. Again, it's all about supply and demand. The Ghost Rares are going to sell this on their own, but the fact that they still put some other decent reprints in here is solid, because it means if you are looking to get those cards more accessibly and you don't want to buy the sealed product, you can just wait and pick up cards like E-Telly and CosmoJoe and Fogblade for probably like $5 a piece, if not less, once this is open. This set is going to be widely opened by people trying to chase down Ghost Rares. Like, that's almost a fact. So if there's any reprints you want, you're looking at about 65 reprints of cards that were probably somewhere between $4 to $20. I know it's a big range, but there's a lot of cards in here that you can now get super cheap. They'll be like pennies on the dollar for the most part. Ojama Country was $10. You can get this card for $1 once the set comes out, guaranteed. So the initial outrage because your set doesn't have 50 really good cards, to me, feels unwarranted. We should have never expected that they were going to put that many good cards in this set, because usually they put about 5 to 7 really solid reprints, 8 to 10 decent reprints of cards that were in the mid-price range, probably didn't need an immediate reprint at the moment, and then crap. All of the March reprint sets have had crap. Dual Overload has a lot of crap. A lot of the new cards that were in that set were crap. So, overall, I just think to kind of take a step back, take off the frustration goggles you were wearing because you were expecting this set to be the greatest thing ever, and realize that they, in theory, could have put 100 bad cards in this and the Ghost Rares, and it still would have sold. I just don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be. And those that are frustrated because you pre-ordered on it and you paid really high prices above MSRP, that's not Konami's fault. I just want to clarify that. I'm not defending Konami as a company because most of the time they kind of suck. But they set an MSRP, vendors charge more because of the demand. That's not them. They didn't make it out like this set was going to have all of those reprints. They advertised Ghost Rares and some good cards, and people went out and spent a ton of money expecting that they were just going to make insane profit, or that the set was just going to have every single card in the game you could possibly need a reprint of, and that just was never going to happen. So, that aside, the third grouping of people are those who like the set and who are just content to be able to get some of these things, but probably would have liked to see a small handful more of actually useful cards. And I fall into that category, right? So I'm not in that middle category that's like, oh, I absolutely need accessible versions of all these cards. Like, I don't mind paying the money to get an E-Telly. I don't mind paying the money to get an Orchestrated Return. Like, $20 a card is not going to break it for me. But I acknowledge that there's a lot of people who are in that situation and who would rather be able to get a cheap version of a card, whether it's to play remote duels, to go to locals, to play with friends. And this set gives them a ton of that. You can build or upgrade a decent amount of decks with sort of essential pieces here for a relatively low price. And so I understand people being happy about that. Those that love the set and think that it can do no wrong and doesn't deserve any criticism, not on board with that, because there are a lot of crappy reprints. Like I said, there's probably at least 20 off the top of my head that I'm just like, not even why is this in here? I'm like, why are we reprinting this? Why do we need another Resonator engine? Why do we need Xyz Burst? Why do we need Metal Foes Counter, Metal Foes Combination? Honestly, the whole Metal Foes slate, really. I understand that they got some new support coming out, but these cards all come foil for the most part, with like a few exceptions. So if you want to complain, you can certainly nitpick and look at things and complain and say, yeah, these aren't the best reprints that we needed. I would have rather seen foil upgrades for cards that maybe are only a quarter or 50 cents, but don't have foil prints and haven't for a long time. That's where I would have liked to see them make some changes. I think the number of reprints we get in here are relatively satisfying, all things considered. I just wish the foil bumps were for better cards. That's where I'm at on that. Now, sort of encompassing all of that, and I understand I got off track a little bit there, but there's been so much criticism about the set, and I had to like sit down and just sort of like take it all in and just be like, you guys need to relax just a little. We're getting a lot of solid imports in this set too. I love the Starry Night archetype. I think it's super cool. It reminds me of Constellar. I don't necessarily think it's going to do anything in the meta, although maybe. I mean, who knows? Once things are actually like, you know, in hand, people can play, people can come up with ideas. If we get, you know, TCG exclusive support for them down the line, or they get more cards, you could look at, you know, 1,000 different things that could make them viable. But they're a decent archetype. They're going to be fun to play with, and they have badass artwork. So I'm pretty happy to see those come out. The Sun Avalon, Sunvine stuff, I've played against it a handful of times. I don't fully comprehend how it works, but I know people that I've talked to swear by it. They say that that it has potential to be a really good archetype. It has good synergy with other plants. Cool. Who knows? This could be a competitive archetype we're looking at here, taking up, I think, like 12, 13 slots, and maybe we're going to look at this and say, well, I'm really glad we got these here. This kind of was a defining point in this meta, or made some changes, you know? But let's also look at the Shadal stuff. We've got two new Shadal cards, Nest Shadal Genius and Hell Shadal Hollow, both decent cards. There's a lot of hieratic stuff and foil upgrades for all the hieratic stuff that didn't have it before, so that's cool. I mean, hieratic players are going to love that. Convocation as a foil is great. Heavenly Spears is a good reprint of a card that was pretty pricey. Seal of Ashes is a secret rare that would randomly get buyouts constantly anytime Dragon support was announced, and then tank. You guys should be happy. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Time Thief is a fan favorite archetype that's getting foil upgrades for the whole deck, so now you can play your whole Time Thief deck in foil, so if you like that, you know, it's pretty cool for you. And then, of course, like I said, I'm a huge Laval fan. I think the new Laval stuff is really slept on. I think it could be solid. We've got Archer and Salamander both coming out in the set. Both really solid cards. And I'm going to do a whole video talking about Laval once I get all of those cards in hand, because I do think it's an archetype that, you know, no pun intended, can really set things on fire if used right. We got the fairy tale stuff. I mean, I could go on and make the point here, but I just, like, am looking through the set list and looking through the cards. Red Supernova Dragon. Man, that's an awesome card to finally get. Like, it's a shame we haven't gotten the Zenith Rainbow Dragon yet. That's probably one of the few we're missing from that expansion. But Shooting Star Dragon TG EX, I don't love it, but it's decent, you know. The Necros, the new Necros card. I mean, there's so much in here to look at that, like, everybody should at least find something to be happy about. And my biggest thing is this is not a $30 set. You can't judge this based on what you're paying for it aftermarket, because that's not what it was intended to be. It came out at a $15 MSRP. And hopefully, if they do an unlimited run, if they do an unlimited run, they will make it, it won't get that vendor craze to the same extent, because people love the first edition stamp, especially on Ghost Rares, and that's understandable. But regardless of what category of player you fall into here, I feel like there's stuff to be positive about. Like, yes, some of the reprints suck. But over the past year and a half, Konami's done a great job sort of diversifying our product, with the exception of Blazing Vortex, which is kind of a dumpster fire, but we'll pretend that one doesn't exist. Giving us more, communicating with the players, communicating with the YouTubers, being more engaging with the community, and this product, I think, is a decent product. I just think people are slamming it because they set their own expectations of what it was going to be, and because it's not loaded with 180 cards that were, impossible to obtain, or it's just full of staples, everyone's disappointed. Take a step back from the negativity, try to keep a positive outlook on it, and think about the fact that there's so many things to like about this set, despite the fact that there are things to dislike. And you've seen it over and over again. Even Legendary Collection Kaiba had a large handful of lackluster cards, and they were nostalgic, so I understand some people liked it, but that set was worthless when it came out, outside of the top maybe 12 to 15 cards in the set, so it was super top heavy. But now, that set has just started to climb in value to the point where you go through the first 5 pages of TCG Player and you see Legendary Collection Kaiba cards going up in price all over the place. Take a breath. Give it time to play out and see how it is. Try to look at things optimistically instead of immediately hating a product because it's not perfect, and you'll see that this is actually a somewhat decent set. It's not going to be for everybody. Not everyone is going to love it, but to universally pan it as a terrible product is really being disingenuous, because this has new cards, reprints, ghost rares for the first time, and foil upgrades, and you should fall into one of the categories where you can find something to be positive about. Otherwise, I think you might just be looking for reasons to be negative. That being said, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about Ghosts from the Past in the comments below, and whether or not you're excited about it, or if you just think it's terrible and nothing that I've said has even caused you to lean in a different direction. Either way, I really appreciate the feedback, so I'd love to talk to you guys about it. Please like this video and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time right here at Loveshack.